So I'm going to call the meeting of the Simsbury Planning Commission to order at 7:05. I am just going to do a voice roll call because we have myself, Erin Levitt-Smith, Bill Rice, Julie Eaton here as regular members, and we're going to sit our newest member, alternate Diane Duran, as a seated member. So that will give us a quorum for the evening. All right. Can we please rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So, Bill, would you like to walk us through the minutes?
Certainly. Okay. So we have the minutes from the May 10th, 2022 meeting. Does anyone have any comments on page 1, which on my copy shows lines 1 through 46?
I didn't see anything.
Page 2.
I didn't see anything either.
Okay, I make a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
I second that. And George, just to clarify, even if you weren't here, you could vote on the minutes if you feel comfortable to do so, correct?
That is my understanding of Robert Rules of Order. It is an attestation of the commission clerk's work.
Okay. All right.
Not everybody believes it.
So that's why I say whoever feels comfortable. So, all right. So we have a motion to accept to do. Please let us do a vote. For all those in favor of approving the minutes as is, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay. All righty. Thank you. Julie, I have to say, it's like Commissioner Eaton, Commissioner Eaton, Commissioner.
Shows that I have a memory. That's about it.
It was a good discussion in May. It was a very good discussion, so, yeah. All right. So next on is, are we going to do, now I see we have the POC first. We'll do that first and then do the.
I would do that since
Okay.
we have a guest this
Yeah,
evening.
that's fine.
Who might want to participate.
Okay.
I always like to front load the guests.
Okay. So, as our new business, we welcome back Glenn Shalder. I'm personally really happy that you agreed to come back because we all really enjoyed the work we did with you in 2016 and 17. So, selfishly, I was like, yay, we get to work with Glenn again. So.
Well, at least for one, you're going to have to go through.
Yeah, we haven't.
RFP
We're not under
process.
contract yet, for the record.
No, but we
Chair.
get to at least have. We get to at least have contact with.
Should
so-
I?
Please come.
Sure,
Sit
that would
next to
be
me.
great.
Sit next to me. So remember, after our May discussion, we had a great discussion about trying to drill down what topics, the select topics that were most important to you in terms of of calling it a select update, an update of our POCD. I actually also sat down with Glenn separately on this and kind of walked through some of the items, but he did get a copy of the draft scope, and I sent everybody a draft scope. I did not intend it to be the end point, but a starting point based on your discussions. So I thought it would be important for Glenn to at least come and listen, and if he had additional questions that would help draw out particular topics, that would be great, I think, and I think that would be helpful to the entire commission. So I'm happy to talk or let Glenn talk, or
All right. So
I'm not sure how you want to kind of work through this. You want to just maybe offer some thoughts on scope or ask questions? You want to start there?
Just talk a little bit, just really quick, because I don't think we've met before,
Yeah.
and so I'm Glenn Shalder. I've actually been a Simsbury resident off and on for 50 years now, since 1970. My parents moved here, so I went off to college and did all the other good stuff. But basically been a Simsbury resident now, full-time since the late 80s. I am a planning consultant. I've done work for more than half the towns in Connecticut in terms of land use planning and rewriting zoning regulations. I had a chance first to work with the town on the 2007 POCD and then the 2017 update. I've helped over the years in terms of staff looking at the zoning regulations in terms of graphics and reorganization and user friendliness and kind of things like that. But I would say that my background and experience is in helping communities figure out what they want to be when they grow up, what sorts of strategies can help communities accomplish their goals and vision, and that's really what I like to do. It's part of my DNA, I think. So because it's my hometown, I just have a special affinity for Simsbury, and I follow the decisions that go on and things that happen, et cetera. And so when George suggested that, you guys were thinking about a midterm update, and if there's any advice I can give you based on my experience or what's going on these days in municipal planning or anything that could help you address or approach this, I would like to do that. It's a follow-up from the work I've done with the town before, and I'm not sure what my long-term strategy is in terms of continuing what I do. So, would I be around in 2027? Honestly, I don't think so. I don't think I'll be doing this anymore in 2027. But if this was something the town wanted to undertake, I would be interested in submitting a proposal. So, but today is not about that for me anyway. It's about you having an opportunity to sort of pick my brain about what happened on the current plan and where we might go from here. So I'm happy to help any way I can tonight.
Great.
George, what is the, how do we get on this with the?
Oh, goodness gracious.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Come in and type for Mary's zone here.
So
Just push
while
a
they're
whole
doing
bunch
that,
of things.
I know, I was going to do that. And then I
So
was like,
4 zeros are your, is your password.
Oh, okay,
Swipe up, and you
Okay.
get 4 zeros, and there you go.
perfect.
Do you-
Pretty secure.
Are you good?
No, I'm good.
Pretty secure.
you cracked the code?
And then
I am the down the list.
next year it's going to 4-1.
Ah,
An update that happens before the 10-year period, does it restart the 10-year clock?
It does, yeah.
OPM has been
It does.
fairly generous on that particular situation, so they tend not to look behind the curtain and what's the mechanics of the whole thing. They believe that if a town undertakes this effort, follows the statutory process,
Yep.
you're doing it for meaningful reasons, and they're prepared to give you another 10 years.
It just gets a new effective date.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're going to follow statutory requirements.
Yeah,
Public hearing, all that
Yeah.
stuff.
The 60-day review period,
Yeah.
public hearing.
As George says, that's the biggest thing, is it's an uncommon public review period. So I think it's 65.
Yeah, 65.
The Council of Governments and the Board of Selectmen get a chance to provide comment. And there's a procedure that if they say, well, this is, what you guys are doing is ridiculous, and they're opposed to a recommendation in the plan, they can force a 2/3 vote here. Never had that happen. I don't think you want it to happen. You want to try to get to consensus on what that is. But it's a little hiccup in the process. You develop a cadence on the plan, you're working towards it, and all of a sudden everything goes on hold for 65 days, and then you're looking at a public hearing and adoption. So the procedures are not rigorous.
Perfect. We did have a lot of conversation when we started contemplating the change with the term character, community character, et cetera. Any insight as to what other towns are doing to address that, if anything?
Towns are pretty surprised by the fact that character became essentially a 4-letter word. It's my experience in Simsbury in the last 2 plans, and really for most towns around the state, the concept of the ambiance of the community is important to residents, and that's part of our land use vision. So the fact that the character isn't, welcomed anymore from a zoning perspective, I think does actually tie out now to the POCD. Towns are starting to now use the concept of characteristics, which is very similar to character, but you usually certainly need some additional words on there to kind of understand what that is. But I believe that the concern over the word character came up because it had been used to deny affordable housing applications. So they wanted to take that off the table and they did it in a nuclear way. And I think they could have done it a lot of other ways and left character intact. But I think you can address the issue about the importance of the ambiance of Simsbury and the characteristics which are important for us, be as specific as possible in terms of how that happens, but move ahead without having to use the word character.
Yeah, we never intended it to have a negative connotation, that's for sure.
No, not when
I still don't read it as you have to take every word of character out of your POCD. I think you might have to out of your zoning ordinance, for sure.
Right.
Because I read it the same way, is that it was a decision-making process as part of the zoning decision-making that led to the reaction.
So it's kind of an ambiguous requirement, right? Nobody can point to the specific of what the character is. But if we said, like, you know, we want to have, 5-acre lots and single-family dwellings, that could be a definition of the character of town. I'm not saying that's what it should be, but...
Yeah, I think my suggestion would be that, in the beginning of the plan, we had some introductory stuff. I mean, here on the very first, we had excerpts from the statutes.
Right.
And if you took that out and replaced it and said character, when we use the word character in the plan, we mean these kinds of things, and we don't use it in a judgmental way, or we're not going to try to use character to deny, for example, affordable housing applications and other stuff. But what we do in Simsbury, we care about. We have design review, we've got village districts, we've got form-based codes. These are all things which help us move in these directions, and we would like to embrace and continue that without, doing things which are in violation of state or federal law.
Aaron, we worked on the old POCD, right?
Right.
That was before all the new apartments were built. I don't think anyone envisioned that happening when we were talking about the POCD. I personally think it changed the character of the town in certain areas, and not for the better. I can't tell you how many people complained to me about the obstructed view of the tower going south on Route 10.
Yeah, I think I've heard comments similar to that. For example, with the Hartford insurance site, people understood that the insurance site was going to get redeveloped, not that the pig field, the old pig farm would be. And so the impact of that visually, when that was sort of your view, and you have to recognize, look, something was going to happen there eventually. Could it have been configured differently? I mean, it could have been a single-family home subdivision.
Right.
There's a lot of things it could have been. But perhaps that's an issue then for redoubling our efforts in terms of, well, what do we mean by character? And, in the plan, we tried to identify special places and scenic views and agricultural property as ways that we'd like to preserve or enhance these if we could. And maybe there we didn't do as good a job as people wanted us to do.
Well, it took a lot of criticism off of the development of the north end of town. What's that one called?
Dorset Crossing?
Dorset Crossing. That was the lightning rod for 5 years. And then, Aspen Glen and the other one came in, and everybody forgot about Dorset Crossing.
But I do remember conversations as part of the plan update process that the loss of the Hartford was going to be significant on the community, and how we were going to be able to survive, being overly dramatic here, with that impact to the grand list.
Yeah.
And then there were two issues that came up as part of our conversations, at least that I remember. One was housing can do it, right? And there's certain types of housing which are fiscal positives.
Yep.
So in fact, we can buffer the impact on the tax base from a $600 million facility or whatever. There was some ridiculous number because of all the computer equipment that was in there.
Yeah.
It was impact. But the second thing was there were concerns about the fiscal impacts and housing at that time. And was Simsbury going to lose its flavor as a strong residential community with an excellent school system? And I remember conversations about the fact that, you know what, if we can get people in with apartments and get them used to Simsbury in here, they will feed into single family, and we will strengthen our community because of the multifamily. So, in hindsight, could we have done it better? Perhaps we could have. But I also think, we've diversified our housing supply, and so I think that that's a benefit to the community, but maybe the locations or the design, and maybe that's one of our messages going forward as part of the plan. Hey, you know what?
But we diversified it from single-family units to apartments, that's clear. I don't think we did anything to improve the affordability.
Yeah, I think affordability is such a difficult topic,
is.
and I remember talking to Mike about the affordable housing plan was underway, because Simsbury actually was ahead of other towns in terms of the plan. It was a fairly simple approach, but it was helpful in terms of its simplicity about what we could do. And I actually think, having worked with some other towns on their affordability plan, it's a hard issue.
Remember, Aaron, we debated long and hard. Remember that, Julie? Remember the number we said we wanted to move
Yes.
the needle by like 1% in 5
Exactly.
years?
Right.
Everybody said, you can't do that. Well, it's been
70 years.
2 years now, and we haven't moved the needle at all.
Yeah.
Right. That's not aggressive enough.
I just looked at the affordable housing plan a couple weeks ago, and we had action items in the back.
Yeah, we did.
You know, not a single one, to the best of my knowledge, has been addressed.
One was a task force too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought the selectmen were doing something off the Spirit Committee to address.
Oh, they were, okay.
So there's
think-
kind of a big, a significant movement from the DEI committee. I spoke at the first, kind of the introductory planning 101. They are gonna do another community event on affordable housing in October, in the fall, and talk to them a little bit about, we do have a policy-making group called the Planning Commission that has a significant role in this. So we need to actually figure out a way to make sure that, who's the stakeholder, who's not the stakeholder.
Right.
And we certainly, there's some collaboration probably necessary there
I agree.
as we move through our process.
So I think, piggybacking on what Bill was saying, when we were doing the affordable housing plan, we met with people from the Spirit Council, and we were very clear as to what we were charged with by law, by statute, because I think there was a feeling that we were going to kind of solve the affordable housing issue in town, and we were like, and I thought we did a good job at saying, no, this is our mission, this is what we're here to do. But what we did do is incorporate some of their suggestions in our action plans. I mean, I think we did a good job trying to blend.
I'm sorry.
So what came out of that was people were saying that the word character, and that, and these are my words, but paraphrasing, it was kind of offensive, or they didn't, they thought it wasn't inclusive. And one of the things that I think I said and Holly said at the time is that wasn't our intent. That was not our intent of using character. This is what we were trying to convey. And somebody said, basically, well, it doesn't matter if we find it offensive, And so I really did think about that. I thought, all right, well, our intent wasn't to, but it did. So what do we do about looking at the word character? Do we take a look? I mean, I felt like at least we should examine, what do we do? How do we kind of smooth the edges, so to speak? And so we ended up having a discussion, I think it was in December, around that, and we couldn't come up with a consensus, which is how it led to, maybe we need somebody to come in and consult with us to kind of walk us through this, because I think people had very differing opinions, but very solid reasons as to why they were landing on one or the other. I just feel like it's worth examining. Is there, like you said, using characteristics, or maybe we don't take as many words out? You know what I mean? I don't know. I just felt like it was worth exploring, because when we did this, the world is very different. It's only 6 years, but it's really progressed. And as Bill said, even the town, has changed over that short period of time.
So it's interesting too in terms of the production of housing in Simsbury, right? So that 2017 was the year the legislature passed the requirement for each municipality to prepare an affordable housing plan. The plan couldn't be older than 5 years. So towns do what towns do, which is, I got some time, I'll just wait. And then the last 12 months have been a mad rush. And still, according to the articles in the Current, only half the towns in Connecticut made the deadline.
Wow.
So the other ones are working on it, and they know that they have to, because the state is paying attention to this. But I think based on the work that I've helped communities with around the state, the first job from these affordable housing plans is to open people's eyes up to the need for affordable housing. Most people say, I had housing, I don't see what the issue is. My friends have housing, my kids have it. And they don't realize the challenges that housing creates. And some of the plans I've done, I use a chart that shows the relationship between median income and median house price. And how back in the 60s or 70s, housing was very affordable. And it's only really with demographic changes from new baby boomers and others that housing, which used to be less, around 2.5 times people's income, is now up to 6 times people's income. And that's just not sustainable.
No.
The last time it got that high was the subprime mortgage crisis and the big crash that came afterwards. So is that in our future? I hope not, but it could be. So I think if we can use the plan as an opportunity to help people understand that housing isn't a sword to be used against other people. We have housing, you don't, you can't come into our municipality. And you look at the history of Simsbury, Terriffill, the Ensign Bickford houses, a lot of the neighborhoods around, and the amount of multifamily we have. So if we had sort of gotten on the jump earlier in terms of an affordable housing set aside or inclusionary zoning, we might have hundreds of units.
Well, every time an applicant comes in with a either workforce housing, that doesn't come to us, that just goes to zoning, okay?
Yeah.
But 8-30G, I've asked them to set aside 50%. And never happens.
The economics on these units are really hard. So I've heard developers of affordable housing say that if I have to sell a unit at a price that's affordable to somebody at 80% of area median income, and roughly for a family of 4 in the Hartford region, that's about $80,000 a year for a family of 4. I mean, it's not low-income housing, right?
Right.
And the issue is at that price, it almost covers its costs. So it's kind of, okay, I'm building the units anyway, but the materials...
Building more than he could.
But if you go for a 60% unit, that hurts, because now it costs more to build than they can sell it for. So that's why in 830G, they don't want to do more than they have to do.
I understand it, but they're not helping.
They're not. But I think the issue could be for a municipality is to look at a couple of things.
Sorry, Glenn, take Climax Road.
Yeah, well, that was miserable.
It was miserable.
Okay, they came in with, original plan of 26 houses, right? We settled on 19. I was floored when I saw what the market rate, they were selling for $500,000. You're telling me a developer couldn't put up 19 $300,000 homes and make money?
I think we've got to work within the laws, and I think realistically...
They could have done 100% affordable, 19 homes, $300,000 apiece. Maybe they weren't the 1,700 or 1,800 square foot houses.
It's hard, Bill. I mean, they're in the business of
I know.
making money. Just
Hey,
like
you know me, I'm the free market guy. But what I'm saying is, the legislature that's out there is not helping.
No, I think the laws have flaws in them, okay? 830G and everything else. But we've got ground rules in effect.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, there are organizations out there that are motivated by the social issues and the moral issues, as opposed to, making money.
I agree.
How do we attract them?
I think we can, right? So the town...
Right, I think that was part of our affordable housing plan, was to find these organizations.
The Colbro land is across the street from my house. Okay. So I don't have a problem if the town wants to take a portion of the Colbro land and put in a small development or of affordable homes, 100% affordable. I mean, because even Cambridge Crossing, so I helped the town write the regulations, became Cambridge Crossing, but also became Climax Road. So one of the things I like about that regulation is in the back of it, it says if you want to do single family, these pictures are things that we think are desirable, and these pictures are things that we really hope you will not create as part of this development.
Yeah.
So a lot of people's concerns about character is their fear of developments that they have seen in other places.
Well, if anybody drives through Cambridge Crossing, they'll say, this was a mistake.
Because,
It's not done.
Well, it's not done.
It backs up to a sandbank. You look at the back of the skate center, the cooling equipment. Now, people are buying them, okay? So it's not what I have envisioned for Simsbury. Then maybe I'm the minority.
well, I think there's a lot of reasons why that development does meet some people's needs, and I think if you look at Ensign Bickford Homes, what they've done there, I mean, how many times did it take to get that application approved? It was changing industrial land to housing. I was like, are you kidding me? And people started to realize, wait, industry hasn't come to Simsbury in decades.
Right.
It's not coming.
Yep.
So there's portions of the powder forest we're just never really going to be able to use. We'll keep some of it, but, and really, I don't think much has changed since the 1980s in terms of. So, but these are part of the challenges, right, in terms of guiding a community into the future, is to recognize the strengths that you have today and try to continue those and say, maybe we could do a better job on affordable housing.
I just don't think we're taking it seriously. Honestly. You know, there's a lot of talk that's going around, but there's nobody willing to pony up, put money where the mouth is.
You probably need some reg changes too, but the planning commission isn't the place to get that done, right? You gotta convince the zoning commission. So if there could be a working group, some communities have established an affordable housing working group. So it's not the planning commission's role, because oftentimes you're regulators.
Yeah.
Right. But there's another entity that would become the advocates, members of the zoning commission might be on this group, et cetera. And the more people talk about it, there can be common ground and pathways forward.
But they certainly articulate that policy, you know, through the POCD.
Sure.
You know, additional policy in terms of that. It's very challenging, and I don't, you know, my experience has always been, it's just really hard to just encourage affordable units. I mean, I think most places that do get them have at least some minimum threshold that's required of every application, even if there's a density bonus or those kinds of things that go with it. So some threshold. You know, here, you know, I found, you know, even in my first 60 days, we really don't have the zoning tools. I mean, if somebody came to me, George, where can I do this kind of product? The answer is you can't. And that's any kind of product that's not single family at a minimum 40,000 square foot lot size. We don't have smaller lots. You know, we don't have the ability to do that. We don't really have the ability to do, you know, infill projects of a multi or a stacked kind of unit, or, you know, even we just don't. So that's where the rubber hits the road, I think, is that, you know, are we willing to give ourselves the tools to do that? And then, you know, add to that, I think, you know, one of the challenges that when I look at the plan, somebody would tell me, where are we going to support a little bit more density?
Yeah.
You know, and it's a little bit hard to point them in that direction, because a lot of it's, you know, if it's here, if it's, I mean, it may be more helpful to put a final point on it.
But I think you've spoken eloquently, I think, about the first thing that was on your list here, which is, okay, we adopted an affordable housing plan, and that was 2 years ago, and not much has happened. So now we are going to take the next step. And I think the question is, okay, what sorts of regulations have communities done to support this? And those can be part of and then sent over to the zoning commission. But identifying places that would support zone changes. And there are places, the plan talked about centers. We talked town center, Terriffill, West Simsbury, Hoskins. So the question is, can we identify some possible places for, we're not talking high rises, right? We want it to fit in the character.
No, I think you're right. I think it's just a little bit of diversity of product that allows for chances for affordability.
And you know, I think years ago, I mean, I've been around long enough, Hazel Meadow, that was originally intended to be, Avon had done Pond Place, so Simsbury was going to do Hazel Meadow. Those are supposed to be affordable by nature, but there's smaller houses in Simsbury, great locations by the bike trail. There's a lot of reasons why they're not as affordable as they originally intended to be. And that is Pond Place. So what can we do to make for not ephemeral affordable units, but real and where. And I think that that could be a really great step forward as part of the plan, is to not sit and wait 5 years to update the plan again, but actually do almost a midterm correction on the affordable housing plan too. That can be very focused.
The market is going to continue to pressure all of Connecticut's municipalities on, good old-fashioned, 4-story multis with big footprints. And we're going to continue we're just going to continue to see that pressure, and so it'd be nice to have alternatives, so we don't have to.
We can also look back even to the charrette, right? Because the charrette actually pointed out specific areas in and near the center where things could happen. And so, be gentle.
I think that the center is ready to receive and support the mixed-use concept.
I don't know, George, an application was just denied 6 months ago.
Well,
Which one?
which one was that?
And I don't know if it was an affordable housing, but it was a mixed use, right where J. Foster's used to be. Now it's the
Rush Bowl.
Rush Bowl. There was a 4-story apartment.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
We didn't see that, though.
It was a zoning
Site plan and
application.
zoning.
Oh, okay, because I was like,
I
I
don't
don't
remember
know.
that. I'll have to, let me ask him that.
So
Let
it
me
was-
remember myself.
So it was an apartment building?
Yeah, well, multi-use, I think first floor was, or maybe that was the contention. Maybe because of the town, the Simsbury Center Code, I think the first floor has to be retail.
Yeah, it does say that, I think. I mean,
And the developer didn't want to do that.
It's very hard these days to get retail to work, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
What
that's-
happened?
So that's
Glenn?
another part of
What happened? Because every application 10 years ago was, we absolutely have to have the commercial component.
Well, the pandemic changed everything.
That's 2 years ago.
Yeah, but
Bill,
people are not
it's a
going brick and
paradigm
mortar
shift.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like saying, I mean, even in the pandemic, did people go into the office anymore? No, right? Everybody's like, stay home, stay safe. And in the meantime, everybody started buying.
Yeah.
You look at the balance sheets or income statements for, some of the major retailers and stuff that, excuse my language, they're sucking wind. It's hard.
Yep.
I mean, there was an article the other day that they're talking about not even, if you bring a product back because it didn't meet your needs, they'll just tell you to keep it and give you your money.
Yeah,
It
I
costs them
guess.
too much to take it back.
Yeah.
So that's not a great business model.
No.
But, things like Amazon or even online stores. So the challenge we're going to have, if we look at our zoning code, is those types of requirements may be appropriate in some places, but if you do it everywhere, you're just going to have vacancy.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to last for a while. And that's not what you want. So how do you maintain the vibrancy and so on? And Simsbury with the Main Street Partnership, we've done great stuff here. So the issue is maybe we need to consolidate a little bit and kind of revisit these types of things. And I think the challenge on that site is the slope in the back. So you could have a 4-story building in the back, and from Hot Meadow Street, you wouldn't even know, right? But perhaps that's not what they did, and that would then be unfortunate. So, but these are the ways I think a plan can help us talk through these items. When an application is on the table saying, I want you to approve this, and the clock's ticking, you got 65 days, et cetera, et cetera. It's really hard.
Yep.
Well, that's not what we want, right? And developer says, well, that's what your regs allow, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
So now's a great time to get into these issues and do updates on even the form-based codes, what worked, what didn't. I mean, if we're not happy with the results, perhaps the worst thing we could do is leave it in place and say,
The town center code, I don't think there's been a new building since it was adopted.
I think there was discussion, for example, Drake Hill Mall, they were talking about adding a new building there.
They did add one. They added the Jersey Mike's.
Jersey Mike's.
Yeah.
Oh, that, yeah, I was thinking there was like an outbuilding in the parking lot. They were
We're
talking.
certainly waiting for Barbara Cope to break ground.
Which one's that?
The 177 units, right?
Right, with no affordable units.
Oh, the one on Iron Horse?
Next side of the park.
On Iron Horse, they
That's
used to.
one.
Off Iron Horse, yes.
Yeah. Well, that was the, whatever it
Well,
was.
that ended up, that came in.
Oh, I know, that was beautiful, Bill, right? All
It's
of
not what it is
It's
anymore.
not, no, I know, Bill. Because I remember when that was presented and they had houses and it was so, yeah. yeah, it ended up not looking anything like
Which
what
site
they
is that?
presented.
Is that the?
Just north of
Yeah.
the soccer fields down on Iron Horse.
The old Simsbury.
Simscroft, yeah, that was it, I couldn't remember.
It's certainly more, it
I saw some of the
became
early
more of a
pictures.
typical suburban product.
Right.
Is what it looks like
Yeah.
to me now.
Right, it was pitched, originally as something a little unique.
Yeah.
with Parking in the back and,
You could do houses, like little houses, remember the, like cottages almost, and then
Yeah.
the
They had a
apartments that
mixture.
come.
Yes, they did.
It was very, yeah.
So
Yeah, but
zoning tools.
looking at those tools, to see why it didn't work or why we didn't get what we wanted.
Because towns do things these days, planned development districts. In a planned development district, the planning commission would have an opportunity to weigh in on it, but a planned development district is really a kind of a two-part application. One part is a zone change. And a zone change is one of the types of applications where the town has the most control. If somebody comes in and they're wearing an orange tie, and orange ties have always bothered you, and you want to turn it down because it's an orange tie, well, I wouldn't suggest you say that publicly, but as a legislative act on the part of the commission, you have quite a bit of discretion. And then you also have the detail of a site plan, and these are merged together. So the challenge we've sometimes seen in zoning is that you have a situation where somebody comes in for the zone change and shows you this beautiful project, and you say, oh, I really like that. And then they actually come in with the site plan application, which is supposed to be implementation of the zone change, and suddenly the architecture's changed, the site, well, this complies with your regulations.
Mhm.
So that's not what you told us.
Right.
So the way to match them together is in what's called a planned development district. You approve the master plan, the language, the map says PDD number 1 or number 10 or whatever it is, and the regulation is the maps, the plans you approved. So if somebody says, I want to change it, and you say, oh, huh, that's too bad, that's another zone change application for you. We can slot you in next week. So it's not always seen as development friendly, but it can create, are you familiar with the movie Aladdin for kids? This tool has amazing cosmic power. For the developer, anybody living space, this is what got approved. And so, if that's the type of scenario that could help Simsbury accomplish its objectives, the regulations are modified to create this process, and then somebody could use it to come in with kind of crazy ideas. But again, you have control, and so it's something for possible consideration.
So, Bill, I just want to ask a question about, did the developer decide not to pursue that building because they would have had to do commercial on the bottom floor?
I don't remember now that I think about it.
Oh, okay, I was just curious. Okay.
We should go there for lunch.
I haven't been there lunch. I've been to a lot of places.
We're doing research. We're
I've
doing
been to a
research.
lot of places since I got here.
All right, so that,
That's-
that's a lot of discussion on
Yeah.
the affordable housing aspect. How about if we hit a couple others, and, because we
Yeah,
could
so
go on forever.
Just to wrap up on this one, I think that this is a great opportunity to advance the discussion. If the plan was adopted 2 years ago, but not much has happened, I'm fearful that in the next 3 years, that might continue to be the thing. So I think you have the ability to amp it up and try to get an organization established and so on. So I think that that's a great reason for doing a midterm update of your POC.
Yes, the second item is the character discussion that, we started with today. So, I don't know how much more we.
No, I think it's got more impacts on finding on zoning regulations,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because they changed the whole structure
Right.
about shall, may, and shall not.
Right.
Right,
And that
right.
really becomes a zoning-related
Yeah, it does.
issue.
It does.
So I think,
But I do think it would behoove us to perhaps better articulate again what we think we mean by character in
I agree.
our policy document.
and I don't know if there's any other phrases in there, overcrowding of land, undue concentration.
I'm not sure there.
Yeah,
I don't think so.
You want to put $1 down on the table and go sign it? I find one undue. You owe me $1.
Well, you wrote it.
I remember.
That's
I don't
like a
often
bad
use
back for
undo.
me.
I wish I remembered everything, yeah.
I'll do a search when I get the wrong way.
I'm going to block you from my
We know you're
emails.
good at doing those.
I did the search.
I think we beat that one up
Yeah,
enough
I
for
would agree.
tonight.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I think we're clear, and we want to explore, that. I know we wanted to put something in on ADUs, and I know, George, we've got some things to look at tonight about the ADUs, but, do we put something like that in, or does that tie into the affordable housing?
Decision is, are you going through the opt-out?
Okay.
Are you going to opt out?
We are.
Then the commission is being made by zoning, a decision?
Yeah, and we're Board of Selectmen have not opted out yet. The zoning commission has opted out and is making additional changes.
Yep.
And really in an effort to try to meet as much as possible
Yep.
the state guidelines. So I think we're in good shape there. We mention accessory dwelling units once or twice in the POCD.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there might be an opportunity to enhance the language just a little bit more there.
Okay.
But I think by and large, the plan is supportive of it. We want
Yeah.
to encourage it.
Yeah, okay.
And I think the only other thing in terms of housing, I think for the POCD to now start to discuss the concept of housing diversity. Never mind affordability, but just, for people who are aging and want a smaller unit, want to stay in town but not the maintenance, do we have enough of the right types of units?
Well, that's
Because we
Bill
don't
and I
have
are
this.
kind of saying that, which is, how do we enhance different kinds of products that we don't maybe have?
Yep.
Do we have enough good old-fashioned 3-story on the block townhouses or whatever? I mean, there's a million products, it just.
I've always wanted to create a periodic table of housing, because I think people don't really realize all of the variety of housing.
Right.
And then you look at what Simsbury has, and it's this little small corner,
Right.
and you say, oh, okay, maybe.
Again, lot size has a lot to do with it, and so that becomes a very
But we have
sensitive
public water
discussion.
and sewer, right?
Right.
And we have capacity.
Right.
And the town did a sewer allocation scheme that basically said, okay, here's what you get.
Yeah.
So, it needs to be strict about that, so that's another issue.
Oh, the Public Act, is that the one about the,
No, that's the character discussion.
no, it was,
The open space.
So, yeah, open space, I know you guys have gone round and round and round.
Public Act 490, yeah.
Previously, but talking to Glenn, and my reading of that act, of the open space, the PA 490, it really does suggest that in the POCD, we should have a map and a list by parcel number.
I'm waiting, keep going, you're on a roll.
A list and a list of the parcels that are eligible or in receipt or should be in receipt of a reduced assessment from the treasurer.
Everybody knows what PA 490 is.
I don't know if Diane does, yeah.
So,
she's-
Public Act 490, actually, the date actually. of the
1963.
1963.
Good
And
years.
so basically, this was a time in Connecticut where it was growing quickly. As growth was happening, taxes were rising, which made owning undeveloped land more and more expensive. People couldn't keep it, and they were forcing land into development, which was causing taxes to go up, so it was a spiral. So the state adopted a program called use assessment. And if you agreed to keep your property as either farm, forest, or what they call open space, and pay a penalty if, sometime in the first 10 years you sold it or developed it, you could get a reduced assessment. And the assessment reduction is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it makes large parcels of land less expensive to own. And I think we talked in the plan about this is part of our character, the ruralness of Simsbury. We look at the mountainside. Most of that land is privately owned, but it's not developed because it's hard to develop and people are getting a tax break. They don't want to. So boom, we get a benefit from that. So the situation here is that the category of farm is dictated by people who farm the property and file a Schedule F and meet the state requirements. So there's no policy implication.
So farmland is taken care of.
We can't change that.
Just
Okay.
Okay, the next one is forest.
Yep.
Forest has to have a minimum parcel of 25 acres.
State regulation?
It's the way the program's set up. It has to have an active forestry management plan. So you have to have a forester
Mm-hmm.
put together and say, you could undercut some of the trees each year and blah, blah, blah. The third option is poorly named. It shouldn't be called open space. It should be called local option. Because what it is your ability to set rules and say, okay, certain parcels should get a tax break. So for example, you could extend it to parcels which are undeveloped forests, but less than 25 acres. Say 10, 5, pick a number.
1.
You could. Avon, I haven't been the town planner there in years, but they had a policy which said, if you have a 2-acre lot in a 1-acre zone, well, you need to have an acre for the house, right? So the other acre is excess land? Sure, PA 490. So many people in town had PA 490, but they weren't subdividing their land anymore, so it was a tax benefit. So Westport does the actual parcel listing, and they cherry-picked 6 parcels. People in town got mad because they felt that these were favors.
Yep.
And so,
I do think it's a great idea to list the parcels. I read it that way. We
yeah,
can talk about that.
you don't have to do it that way.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I know in Madison, for example, they have the Madison Golf Course. The tees and the greens, they tax those, and put the fairways or.
So what I think I need help with the group is what needs to be included in the POCD versus what can the assessor just do on their own in creating a program of what qualifies and what doesn't? Or does that just simply happen in a municipal ordinance?
No, so the statute, actually 12107E of the Connecticut General Statute says that the only way the local option works is that it has to be recommended in the POCD, has to be adopted by town meeting. Once those 2 things are in effect, or in place, you're off and running. You now have your open space program. There are people who complain and say, well, you're giving tax breaks to people. You're going to break the bank on our grand list. And the issue is that it doesn't really have much of an impact in a big picture situation. And if the land was to be developed, the fiscal impacts might be even more significant from that. So I think it's a way to maintain characteristics of the community, which people really appreciate.
So I
So it can
haven't,
be a charged discussion.
I haven't read the actual statute recently.
Yep.
But when I did, I remembered something, and I was able to pull out some old stuff. And you referred to section 12E,
107E. Yeah.
and it says, "The planning commission of any municipality in preparing a plan of conservation and development for such municipality may designate upon such plan areas which it recommends for preservation as areas of open space land, provided such designation is approved by a majority vote of the legislative body of such municipality." It's a may.
You don't have to do it.
Yeah, no.
Right, so-
Yeah, I didn't mean to, yes. It's a may. But that means that there is no reduced value
So
for open
farm is
space.
guaranteed,
If,
forest is guaranteed,
Yeah.
and then local is
Right.
if we want to go above and
So-
beyond and provide options for the town
Right.
constituents.
But the assessor can write the policy.
Right, that's, when this
No.
came up.
Yeah.
They need our guidance.
no.
No.
I think they need
Why
our
not?
guidance, so
No,
we can
because-
say what it is.
Farm is dictated by the state.
Yeah.
And you'll see it on the grand list as tillable A, tillable B, tillable C. I mean,
Right,
based on the
yeah.
soil types
Yeah,
and what's
yeah.
going on, they'll go ahead and take care of that. Forest is, you go to the assessor, you got your forestry plan, you got 25 acres, they can't deny it.
And is the rate established as well?
The state, I believe, sets the rates. The assessor can't just.
Yeah,
cause it
that's
and-
right.
no. So the state, I believe, publishes a list.
Every 5 years, there's some list, I can't remember.
Tillable B is now going to be assessed at
Yes, right,
$435
so,
an
yeah,
acre.
Yep,
So
yep,
all assessors now use that and apply that.
yep.
But open space is the local option.
Okay.
So, on page 54 of the current plan, it has a sidebar. It says, there's 12 parcels in Simsbury meeting the open space criteria totaling 576 acres. bold here. Now it's from the 2016 Grand List report, page 54.
54?
Sidebar.
PA,
Oh, yeah, there it
sidebar,
is.
top left corner.
Sidebar, yep.
Oh, okay.
50.
And there's a strategy on the very top of this page on undeveloped land. Continue to use the
Yep.
PA 490 to help preserve undeveloped land as long as possible. It doesn't stop an owner from selling it,
Right, right.
Right,
We know.
but
they pay a penalty.
they pay a penalty in the first 10 years. So in year one, it's 10% of whatever they saved on taxes. So it's not a huge amount.
So I think the rub-
It's enough to kind of slow people down.
The rub here, Glenn, is there is no policy in Simsbury.
There must be.
The
There isn't.
assessor can't find it.
Right.
They can find records of granting applications, but they can't find a policy. This, we make mention of,
So you know what I do? Who's the town clerk these days?
Oh gosh, what's her name? Oh,
Trish. Trish.
Trish.
So I would throw this at Trish. I would say, Trish, sometime between 1963 and 2016, a town meeting approved an open space policy for the town. Or did they? Maybe don't say they did. Maybe they didn't. Maybe the town has been, I'm pretty sure we would have documented
Yes.
this.
Well,
Well, when the
about this in the
assessor
open
came to, when did
space.
the assessor come to us,
You know,
Bill?
this is so funny.
Last year?
Fall-ish.
it was 2 years ago, I think.
2 years ago?
It was
I-
no, it was when we were still meeting in person. No?
Oh.
It was,
It might have been, I don't.
No, I
they-
only had like 2 meetings in person.
because, the town assessor, I think through the Board of Selectmen, sent a request to the Planning Commission to establish the criteria for open space. And we looked at the regulation, and we debated.
You're only place, okay, so here's the deal. The funny thing is that I've just been cleaning up files, right? But I still have the 2017 Simsbury POCD binder, which is my backup. So it's quite possible I might have saved it. Because normally we wouldn't start reporting stuff unless we had the data.
Yeah.
So the issue is, I'll see if I can find it. And I may not have kept it, I may have seen it and moved on. But I think the only way really to track this down, particularly with changes in personnel, is the minutes for town meetings. They're on the pages from 1963 on, there'd be a bold line that says open space policy or something, and it would be in there. And if it's not, if it cannot be found that way, it's not even searchable by online or whatever, then I say, okay, maybe we've been doing it wrong all these years, nobody's appealed us on it, so let's go ahead and get
Yeah,
that.
and even the couple of, there weren't applications, but we looked at the property cards for a couple of the properties the parcels we knew had been approved for.
Do you remember, give me a couple of examples of what those were?
One of them's,
I have the list. I've got the list of the 12 in an email from the assessor.
Because all I'm thinking is that,
okay, the Foolies.
oh, the
Foley's.
Foley's,
That's
yeah.
on farm?
No, it's PA 490.
Where's that, where's the?
But it's not-
It's
Across from Folly Farm.
Okay. The
It's
one that
guys that used to
we
be
just
slide on
divided
the
a
roof.
couple times recently?
No, that's a different one.
Okay.
You're talking as you're going up the mountain there.
On the left.
Just
Yeah.
as you start
On
to
the left
go.
side.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
That's one I remember, because I just went into the GIS map and looked for large parcels and clicked on the property card, and, it says PA 490 acres, and some says 0, and others have a number of acres.
So it's funny, because I think on that parcel, I don't know the acreage of it, but let's say it was 24.75, then
They
There's
would
another one.
qualify.
they don't qualify for forest, and they're not farming anymore, so the only thing that's available is this open space, and I'd like to think that the town followed the process, because it's not that challenging. But I think this is something that,
I think it needs to be formalized.
I do too. That was what was striking to me, is the assessor was coming to us, and I remember we had a discussion going, well, they should have and there was she couldn't find it. There didn't seem to be any record of when the last time any of these properties had reapplied, I don't know, it just seemed like it just was pushed forward or got lost in the shuffle, I don't know.
So I'm not an attorney, but it would seem to me that the assessor asking us is, we'd have to go back to the planning commission minutes or POCDs from 1963 on to try to find it, because the statute says it's got to be in the POCD, right? What did it?
It said may.
May, but if we're doing it, and if we want to know if we're doing it right, the issue would be, it's got to be in the POCD, not in this one.
No, I know.
It had to be in the POCD when it was first established. Once it's been established and approved by town meeting, then the POCD no longer matters.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, I don't know, no one could seem to, I don't know, we were kind of perplexed, because she was coming to us for guidance, and I don't know,
so I don't.
And there was and I think you guys had seen it, they had sent you a draft on policy, and, I mean, they had sent a draft of kind of the new procedure, new policy, so that exists, and that was whatever
we
developed in
didn't
the
get
last 2
that,
years.
did we? It was more of a request, I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, I think it came from the Open Space Commission.
No, we sent it to open
But you
space.
sent-
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say, we didn't see any draft policy, it was more of a
No.
request from the assessor.
I
was
can
all
have
that.
that.
So Glenn, you're saying if a town or municipality is engaging in PA 490, the POCD must have identified areas.
We'll have to consult the
So
town
If
attorney
you
on
said to
that.
me, Glenn, we want you to fix this, what would you do? First thing I do is either go back through planning and zoning minutes and POCDs to say, okay, is there anything in here on PA 490 ever? Or go back and find the first, the assessor's cards get boxed up and they're all electronic these days, so that's not gonna help us too much. But I also go to the town clerks, the minutes from town meetings. And if I struck out on all of those, I'd say, oh darn it, it looks like there's a really good chance that Simsbury started doing this without following the precursor steps. So I think we accept the fact that maybe we didn't do it quite right, and now we go ahead and adopt a new policy, get it approved by town meeting, and then we're off and running again.
I think that's where we ended up, because everyone was kind of like, there didn't seem to be anything formalized that anyone could find or get their hands on. And so one of the things that we came up with is, do we come up with something now to go by?
And
Because
you know
they're
what,
just,
then, if we, rather than, I guess I'm inquisitive, so I would want to know, but maybe the issue is, you know what? Let's just go and revisit the PA 490 open space policies. And the issue would be, as George pointed out, we could do it by designating particular parcels in town, ones that we think are particularly vulnerable, et cetera. Or the other way we could do it is
Those are the
to,
ones that are good for affordable housing applications.
Right,
yeah,
right.
we could also do it in a certain way with words. For example, Avon says, you know, and I know other towns around the state, I've worked with probably a dozen communities that adopted PA 490 open space policies. If it's more than 5 acres, if it's more than 10 acres, then, because the 25 acre one for the forest is particularly harsh, because that just hits people, they're paying market rate. And there's a couple of ways property's assessed, but one is the house lot, then it's called excess land, and that's a lot less, but it's still pricey.
So-
You get into open space or PA 490, it's like hundreds of dollars per acre.
But
That's
if we're gonna do this, so I'm gonna be probably unpopular right now, I think we do have to look at the 12 parcels and actually assess what the minimum acreage is for all of them, maybe see when that deed happened, when the designation happened. And then I think what we have to do is go look at our open space plan, because I think in the POCD, we say that we want open space to be continuous. We don't want it to just be random
Yeah.
spots. So I think we have to be mindful about, what we do as a designation. I don't think it should just be, oh, we have 5 acres, let's give you a winky gift. Because that goes into the subdivision to the affordable housing or accessory dwelling.
it could.
well, and the other.
It's like a,
The other thing is, I don't think the assessor could tell us whether, we didn't know, she didn't know if there was a minimum. And we didn't feel comfortable coming up with, is it 5, is it 10, is it, right?
I
mean, that
think I
was
would like
part-
to know the characteristics of the existing 12.
Yes, I
As a
agree.
baseline,
Right,
right?
right, because I think when it came to us, we're like, what do you do? Do you do 5? Do you do 10? None of us felt
Right.
comfortable, like, well, what do they think? It was just kind of
Is it-
this,
Right. Is it just acreage, or do you overlay it into a map to that point of where we're gonna talk about town centers and
So
different
my only
residential
suggestion,
zones?
I agree with what you're saying. I think if it might help your conversation if you don't call it open space
Yes.
assessment.
Right.
Correct.
Because open
Fair.
space conjures up this phraseology about, and it's not, it's local option. And if the local option is, I mean, I think in Westport, it's one of the yacht clubs was designated. And you say to yourself,
Well, of course.
right? A
Really?
yacht club? How did they get the open space assessment? But maybe the yacht club right on the,
On the
Long Island
letter,
Sound
right.
was, so, I don't know. But if that's the way the policy was written, the
Right.
assessor's parcel numbers, nobody checks the parcel numbers. So I think thinking through, and this can be a work item that occurs outside of the POCD and then gets reflected because it's the new policy.
She's made that note. Yeah.
For you to do or for us to do?
No, it seems to me that it might want to travel on its own road and not be a part of our little update.
It's got to get into the.
I know, right, but I think it has the possibility of really.
You don't
being a
necessarily
lot
need to
more-
hire a consultant to do this. You-
right.
It also may be quite more complicated with the public process and.
And because the Board of Finance is going to want to weigh in, right?
Yeah.
Right.
What are you doing to our tax base?
It's quite a complicated.
The financial implications, I did, and I just tossed the files. So many years ago, I was hired in the Naugatuck Valley region to do fiscal impact studies for all 13 municipalities. And what we looked at was what was on the grand list in terms of PA 490. And it's not, the tax revenue sort of generated is extremely modest, but there's no expenses that come in. So even PA 490 is a fiscal positive for a town. It just could be more fiscal positive if you taxed it at market rate. But if you do that, there's other implications that come with that. So there's an educational process that goes with that. So I think you're right. Maybe take it offline and then bring it back in, merge it at the end, which may now change your adoption schedule.
Yeah.
Or, so that there's some diplomacy that probably needs to happen just so that the assessor, the Board of Finance, boards, everybody's sort of aware or. So,
There is.
Yeah. What's next on our list here?
Yeah, just some, there were.
Some
we
minor
were-
ones.
Yeah, just some, but it was more like wordsmithing, the fiscal impact statement, the regionalization. I think we were going to put something in about pollinator pathways. So it was just, these things to.
Paragraph additions, I think, although, unless,
Yeah.
we could probably consider doing a little bit more work on the fiscal impact. And whether we're going to consider, a real fiscal impact policy analysis as part of submissions. Are we going to really look at, cost of services versus tax revenue? I mean, people do that as part of the development process. I mean, just don't know how complex we want to make that. So.
Yeah, I think if there's a methodology, an Excel spreadsheet that people would have to put numbers into your.
Right, we'd have to create our model.
Yes, because what I wrote down here on the sidebar of mine was, what are we talking about here? Education, police, fire, EMS, public works, social services, I mean, what?
I think that question's for.
Yes, that's exactly what we were talking about. So it was a very generic statement that says, let's not underestimate the costs to a town to supply education, police, fire, town crew, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For a new development.
Very slow, but I understand, because you can get a subdivision of new homes, which are the homes that are already here, and then that fiscal impact could be negative.
Correct.
So, and there's a whole lot of stuff that's been written on this, and I've done some work on fiscal impact over the years, and it turns out that a new house brings in a new family, which is generally younger, with kids in the school system or kids going to be born that are going to go through the school system. But, my wife and I have lived here and raised 3 kids and through the school system. We've been empty nesters for I don't know how long now. So I'm paying, right? And I'm not getting the benefit. So fiscal impact, there's so many dimensions to it. But the work I did in the Naugatuck region, I think what we discovered was the 3 key indicators were number of people, number of school children, and I'm trying to remember what the other one was. And there were multipliers unique to each town. So you would put these numbers into the model and then predict. And we also produced the model for towns so they could go through the calculation. And in many cases, it turned out it would be better for the town to purchase the land for open space to stop the development.
Sounds like the Meadowbrook pitch.
Yeah,
So,
Right.
but
Right.
to getting the town to pony up the money for the open space is
Right.
sort of part of the problem. So there are some
Right.
tools that can help in that regard. So the question I think here, this becomes the RFP, if you will, for requesting solicitations. I think on this one here, you might need more than sort of 2 lines or 1 or 2 lines for each of these, just to sort of
Okay.
give a sense of your possible use of this and what you would want for a work product. I think, because the POCD could talk about and do, it's an important knowledge base of information for us. We would like to know. It may or may not be a factor in the land use decision. And if it does become, gotta be very careful, right? But I think to explain this one a little bit
Yeah,
better.
sure.
Regionalization, there's some good examples around the state for this, and people are looking at this. Has anybody done any work on pollinator pathways in town in terms of,
Yes.
so there's the concept, is there any sort of mapping or identification?
Yeah, Joe who sits on this,
is part of that,
on this
yeah.
commission is
I think that would be.
quite active and.
We put a lot of maps in the POCD because of how helpful they are for people to visualize and understand.
Yeah.
And I think if there's a way in the natural resources section to tie it into even our natural diversity database sites, but pollinators don't show up in the national diversity database. But if we've got information about
Okay.
desirable,
Yeah, I think we do.
Huge. That'd be great. The census data, I think, probably George.
I always throw that in, but yeah, I mean,
Was
who
the new
knows,
stuff
who knows what's
available yet?
available? Who knows what's really available? There's
2020 should be available, because I think we're using it at
a
work.
very
Baseline,
base,
it's not
baseline
deep.
numbers, like just total population, and, I mean, it's not a lot. It's not,
So
it's
the
not very
information
deep right now.
COVID got them.
And I think it was the prior
It might have been the
administration that got
prior
it.
administration.
I think they submarined the census, and so what ended up happening, for many years, they've held on to the fact that May of 2022 was going to be the time that all the data was going to be released, and then May of 2022 showed up and they said, okay, well, we're going to need another year.
Okay.
So what's available right now is what's called the American Community Survey, which is based on a sample, and is based on a sample of roughly 1 of every 500 households in the United States each year. But these could be people who live in other towns and other states, and they use that data to estimate, because what Simsbury was relative to those, or, that the randomness of their sample in Simsbury. So we're, what, 22,000 people? So there might be each year, 24. So each year might be 48 people in Simsbury. I got the survey questions once, I was appalled that they were using this to estimate
Yes.
for the entire town.
Yeah, the only real number is the raw number for redistricting.
Yes. So
You know,
that was
the
issued.
big number,
Right.
the 24.
August of last year.
Yeah.
So this is a ticklish one, really. If you
Yeah.
wanted precision on the data, you would wait.
Really, I was more hopeful that we would
Yes.
have data as we moved along through this, but yeah, if it's not there, we shouldn't waste too much of our time on it.
No, you can use, the ACS data is based on a 5-year moving average, and right now, the 5 years which are available in the ACS are 2020, 19, 18, 17, and 16. So the data's already 6 to 8 years old. It's not useless, but the margin of error on some of this stuff is bigger than the number itself. So use it as a impressionist painting, not as a technical drawing. And it pains me to say this, because I've been such a huge fan of the census. And I think one of the things I talked about with George was the fact that I'm always fascinated how the age demographics of the community change. And I'd like to see what the impact was from the housing that got built and whether or not it kept us on track. Sorry, you won't have the data until 2010.
Yeah, you just won't have it. So, yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, public engagement. I think you've got to kind of think that through a little bit.
I
Because
think we need to talk about it.
yeah, it's harder and harder to get people to come to meetings.
Yeah.
So when we say one public open house, we tried as part of this POCD to get people, we were doing all our meetings over at Henry James in the
Yep,
cafeteria and
yep.
everything else, and there was one big room and everybody was at one table.
Yep.
It just really wasn't, it was hard.
We're open to suggestions, and that's, you know.
So I think a PR campaign can be helpful, even a little video production that can go on community TV or, you know, on Facebook or other things like that. to
Just
make
get on
people
Simsbury
aware.
Neighbors Unite, 4,000 people will see it like that.
There you go. But the question is now to turn that from a passive, I read about it, I know about it, to participate in a survey or something. So I'm a huge fan of in-person meetings because, you know, I don't know if you ever played the childhood game of like teacups or whatever, but, you know, if everybody talks to George and has a one-on-one conversation with him, you'll say, I told George what we need to do. George knows. The town knows what needs to be. No. George heard from all the people in the room, and he's got to balance that, and he may go in an entirely different direction. So in a public meeting where people hear other people talk, they now start to understand, okay, maybe my issue is not the most important issue in the room, but I know that I now have a better understanding. And the tools, if you can't get people to a meeting, even Zoom doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
People don't really interact well on Zoom.
That was with affordable housing, so.
We did do the Zoom, and people did show up for that.
But the
that-
first one, they did not, right?
Oh, really?
And then didn't we have to do a second? We might not have, but I thought we
I
had to
thought
do
we only did
two.
one.
Then
No, we just did the
one,
forum.
but the people that showed up were all a constituent of one church. Like they
Yes.
all rallied together.
No,
So
that
it
is
really was
true.
not the voice of the town.
No, it was a group, yes, that is true, but people did show up. But you're right, it was, yeah.
So for example, if we could do an online survey, I think that, I got a survey going on right now in Rocky Hill for their affordable housing plan. I think we're up over 800 participants at this point in time, which is many more people than you would get to a public meeting.
Yep.
Kind of get a sense, I've done a number of these, I know which way things are going to go probably in the survey, but getting input from 800 people is really going to be a more meaningful type of thing. So I think the more opportunities for engagement, the better, but in person is really hard. Zoom feels a little bit easier, but the input isn't always there.
Do you help design the questionnaires in the survey? Or
It's part of the work that I do because of, and we did, I think, a telephone survey. Yeah,
There
we
were
did.
surveys in here, I just
We
didn't
did-
know if-
we did a
who
telephone
had
survey.
designed it, like
And so,
the
Yeah.
commission.
It was,
I would
it
just-
was a telephone story, I do remember that. What was that?
I was just wondering who designed the questions.
I think I probably had a lot of
I
input into it with the,
think-
we
With the
approved
commission.
the questions here and the survey consultant, but I've talked to them, they don't do them anymore. They stopped doing them.
Oh,
They said everybody screens their call.
nobody
That's true.
answers the phone.
that's true.
So
Yeah.
Well,
I forced them at one time on a survey that it had to say on the caller ID, Town of Simsbury survey,
Yep.
and they had to leave a message. So once they randomly selected a number, they had to make 3 calls. And every time leave a message, you've been selected to participate. We're very interested in your input, et cetera, et cetera. I'll call you back tomorrow, or please leave a message, when's a convenient time to call?
I've had success with SurveyMonkey. I mean,
That's what I was gonna say.
and just getting it out in the community.
Yeah.
We can get, in Vernon, I was in Vernon, we got 1,500 responses.
Yeah, it's,
Wow.
there's a
I
lot
was
of
very pleased. I
people
was thrilled with that.
that sign up for like town notices, you're getting
There's
everything.
plenty
in
of, we've
Simsbury.
got plenty of organizations.
There's a lot of distribution lists.
Yes,
And listen,
yes.
I'm not gonna answer my phone, but I'll sit here in a meeting and multitask.
Right. I just want to
Not this meeting.
No, people do though.
At work, right?
Yeah.
Work meeting, no, I'm
I just want to
totally-
make sure that we kind of match the public interaction and the public outreach with the selective nature of this project. You know, it's not a, you know, open the doors and open the document to rewrite the document. So that takes a little bit of nuance, and I'm not sure I know how to do that exactly. So
I think
it really will take, this is what we're talking about. We're not talking about this, we're not talking about that. We're talking about these 4 topics.
And I think, though, at the end, I'd encourage you to consider an open-ended question that says, okay, in addition to
Love
these
the
4
open-ended question, like you can get, it's 700 individual written responses, and
Yep.
that gives, it really is.
color commentary on a lot of stuff.
It truly is. That's where you get the best comments. So we can work on that and figure out.
Yeah, so I think
Okay.
that's the hardest thing, because public engagement has become harder. People are crazy in their lives, and getting people to come to meetings physically is hard. So if there's some way, I had some success in the past getting the school system involved. And the reason is, I think it's grade 4 and 10 that have like a civics part of their curriculum. And so the issue is, okay, you know, what does planning mean to them? Or what's the future of their community? Or what things do they think are important? And through them, you actually rope in their parents. And
Yes, right.
so-
Sneaky, Glenn.
That's
It
not
works.
really balanced survey for people that don't have children.
No,
I'm
it's
just
not.
being silly.
No, but
I'm being silly.
I know you are, but I think the issue
Selfish.
is that
Selfish, yeah.
parents with kids will generally not check in, because they're all focused on their kids and the other stuff. So
Right.
helping with homework, getting baths, getting them into bed,
Right.
all.
Driving to soccer,
You know what?
busy.
Yeah. So it's harder than it ever used to be.
I apologize that I'm getting punchy. It's
Yeah.
Why? Is there any other questions you can have?
No, it's been a great conversation, Glenn. Glad we're able to talk.
Yeah, because I think we definitely were, I don't want to say we were lost, but we were stuck with the character discussion in just,
And afraid to, you know, do something that,
what if, yeah. Well, no, but we wanted to be sure we were doing the right thing, too. I mean, it was all, you know.
So I would agree with George. I mean, I think you can double down on character in the sense
Yeah.
that have an upfront statement about what character means to you. You're using it in a descriptive way. And George can help quite a bit on all of this stuff, and, you know, kind of move that along. And if there's questions that come up as you guys move forward on this, I mean, give me a call. I'm a sucker for breakfast. But if there's anything else I can help you with, just let me know.
Okay.
awesome.
I'll let you guys get back to your regular
Regular
schedule. That's what I was trying to think of.
As I've said in many
Returning to your
meetings,
program.
my interest, not interest, but my attention level wanes after 1 hour and 30 minutes.
Oh,
know.
it's been that long? Okay.
Well, we can be quick on this.
Glenn, thank you so much.
Don't jinx us,
It's a
George.
pleasure to be here, so thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So, but I'm gonna violate my
Well, thank you.
my own comment. I brought up the GIS, okay, just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
And the area coming down the mountain, 185,
Yeah.
on both sides, okay? So there's a parcel, and let's see if I can describe it. It's 71.
I know.
In your space.
That's not right. 71 Carrington Avenue, that's not right. But anyway, if we look, come on. shut
Yeah,
that
that's
up.
over by the bridge. Are you trying to get over there?
Anyway.
You got to exit
it's-
out of that one, yeah.
Coming down the mountain.
Exit out of
But
that.
anyway, this one,
Okay.
yeah, why did it come up? It says it's Nod Road, oh, mailing address is 71, okay, so it's on Nod Road, okay, sorry. The, so it's an undeveloped piece of property, total acres, 8.5,
Yep.
490 acres, 8.5.
Yeah, and it's all floodplain, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying, you know, it's not 25 acres.
But the
Okay.
piece you're thinking of is right next to Nod Road, the corner of Nod Road 185 on the mountainside. I don't even think that's farmland, so I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, how is that even?
So to your point, like, yeah, we could
Oh, here's
research.
another one.
I'm gonna
Okay.
pull all those and I'll put a little
Robert Patricelli.
Acreage.
Patricelli.
Love it.
use.
That's
Data
the
girl.
farm.
Can you tell?
What's that?
I love data.
Yeah, I understand.
Isn't that,
I do too.
that's the farm there?
107
Little
acres,
spreadsheet.
105 are 490 acres.
So you're getting half the story there, though,
Yeah.
because there's multiple categories, so I think what
Okay.
the
Floodplain there, there's a lot of.
the assessor's
Space, there's a lot.
database will categorize.
Yeah, so I'll get into that.
So I shouldn't trust this so much?
You need, that's showing you sort of the summary, and the question is, wait a second, what categories are those?
Yeah.
Because.
I see what you mean. It's not just the so-called open space. It could be all four of
So
the
the
categories.
first parcel, the 8.5 acres, if the person who owns that owns farmland and considers it a unit, and that's even wetlands and floodplain, the assessor will just roll it in with everything else and give them the 8.5 acres.
Sure.
So that's just the back, almost every.
Okay, so I see what you're saying. 490 is broken into four categories. We only deal with three here because we don't have the maritime,
Right.
whatever it
The
is,
shellfish
right?
one, right?
You know, so we have farmland,
Forest.
forest land, and open space.
Local option.
Local
We'll call it
option.
the local option. And that's not identified on the property card.
It is in the grand list, in other words.
Okay.
The assessor has if you download the database as an Excel spreadsheet,
Yeah.
you can sort that column, George. And it'll give you tillable A, B, C, and the other stuff, so you can, boom, or they can run a report.
Okay.
Who did the original approval for those pieces? Whose responsibility, is it just the assessor?
That was
Or
the
did
big
it-
debate.
That was
That's
one
the
of our
question.
questions.
I think that is the question.
That is
So
the
we don't
que-
know if it came through the planning or zoning. or
Well, it
anything,
hasn't
right?
since Bill's been on, and he's been on the longest.
Right.
I mean, I
It's-
haven't seen
it's a
anything,
historical
nothing's.
carryover.
Once your job was done, let's say.
And this assessor is
there-
asking
There
those
was
questions.
criteria at some
Right.
point in
Like,
time.
how did we
You
get
send
here?
it out
So
into
the
the
12
world, and
that
it's
we
done
have
its thing, and you'll
were
never
all
see it
approved
again.
before.
There you go. So it's interesting that the assessor came to
There's no
us.
date on anything.
But I think that if she read the statute,
There's no
she would say,
date.
oh, this had to have started at the
The
planning
reduction.
commission, so I'm gonna
Yep.
go,
So
no.
there's no
The
documentation.
place to find it is the town meeting.
Yeah,
It's not clear.
It never would have gotten there, right? So,
yeah, it's all.
my work is done.
Okay. Bye,
Thank you
Glenn,
so
thank
much.
you.
You have a referral from the zoning commission?
Yes, and can I ask a question, just on Glenn? I thought, so if we're gonna do a review to get the clock ticking again, then we do have to do an RFP. Is that correct? Or an RF?
I will say this, I will,
or
I need to revise the scope, and then I will follow up with our purchasing policy
Okay,
to see, based upon potential cost, where and what's required
okay.
under our guidelines.
Did we do an RFP or an RFQ? We did one, right, Bill? I mean, I know, because Glenn, I think there were 3 people that.
We do have a professional services category that, up to a threshold, we can engage individuals, often with, just comparative prices without doing a full RFP or RFQ process.
Okay.
So I just need to figure out
Which one? Okay.
what, now I may ask, others to kind of help me figure out what the price of our final scope looks like.
Yeah.
And then go through that, so.
Okay.
Whatever we'll do, we're gonna follow town policy.
Yep.
But I don't know that what we're gonna do is gonna reach a threshold of cost that's gonna require an RFQ or RFP process.
Okay.
I just don't know that yet.
Okay, all right, but it could be, and we could end up.
But it could.
It could,
It
okay.
could.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I was moving on, sorry. Okay, so, for Diane, this might be helpful. So when, the planning commission acts as a referral body, when there's text amendment or a zone change amendment, maybe as part of a plan development process, which we do have a zoning category for that. But in this case, the zoning commission is considering revisions to the accessible dwelling unit. Accessory, oh my God. I'm saying I keep mixing those words up. Accessory
Yep.
units. We've been through a kind of a long process here. I suspect that you had a referral request when they were going through the opt-out process?
Yes.
Because it was
We did.
Because it was a zone change. I mean, it was a text change as part of that process. So we
Right.
should have had a referral
I
discussion
think we also
about
gave a
that.
recommendation, even though yes, but we did get that.
So typically, your charge in this is to make a determination of whether the text change to the zoning ordinance is consistent with your POCD. That's kind of the big picture responsibility.
Agreed. Yep.
I think often you may find yourself wanting to make recommendations on language changes and those kinds of things. I don't typically recommend that you do that, but I mean, I think if there's things to make policy stronger, I think it's okay to drive through that window a little bit, but I think you have to be careful. Your job, your charge is to make a determination whether it's consistent with your POCD.
Yep.
And I think you guys
I
know
agree,
that.
but I also think, I'm going to bring this up again so it's on record. I think we need to meet with the zoning commission. I think we act in such silos that I'm not sure, I personally, I will say, I think it would be helpful for them to hear what our thinking is. And we did this when I was first on the commission, and now granted, COVID has stopped, but there just hasn't seemed to be a reciprocal,
You can set it up with Dave. You can suggest it to him. I don't think it's a town responsibility, you know.
well, I haven't gotten anywhere that way.
Okay.
So I didn't know have you had any luck with separate zoning and planning? Because we did that, and I thought it was Jamie that set that up when we did it.
He may have, but I'm just saying,
I think there has to be a willingness among both bodies
Right.
to want to sit together.
Yeah, I guess there isn't. Okay.
And I'm certain.
Which is a shame.
I think it's probably my responsibility to have that conversation with Dave. I'm certainly happy to say there's a desire at the Planning Commission to meet and kind of discuss big picture and our roles and all those things. So I'm more than happy to do that. And I think that is my role.
Okay.
I can't make any promises.
No, I just think having that conversation, I just think it would be helpful.
Sure,
I found
sure.
that helpful when we did it with Jamie. We sat and we had a lovely conversation, and it was very helpful. And I just think there's things that we have discussed that have come, remember they didn't understand our comments, that was a couple years ago, we're like, what don't you understand? We were really clear, and I think it's because there was no common understanding of what our mindset was and us of theirs. So I just think it would be helpful as we're going through, I don't know. Anyway.
Okay,
But if there's
as
no.
long as we have an agenda.
Yeah,
I think you need
I
an
don't want it to be
agenda.
a free-for-all.
No, there would be.
Again, I would also be careful, right? I mean, if
And you and I can talk about a potential extent. I just
Right.
think.
But if you want to talk about particular items, we do need to be careful. It can't be something that's a pending application,
Right.
because then you really, I would just suggest you come to the public hearing and provide those comments then. I think
Right.
that's probably more appropriate. But kind of big
It's
picture
more of just
relationship is a
big
good
picture.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean-
what I'm talking about, big picture relationship.
I will speak
I mean,
with
we're the
Dave
two, and I just don't feel like there's any,
For a fairly new person on the commission, with somebody brand new, as well as a lot of new people that came
Yeah.
in after the most recent election, it may be helpful just to provide an overview
Yes.
of the different land
And what
use
everybody
commissions
does, and our
and-
responsibilities.
That
and
would
what
be
we do.
great.
Yes, right, like just a level set
that would be great.
helpful.
Yes, I think so too.
Because I'm sure I make some assumptions that are poor at times, and it would be good to know,
Yeah, no, I think that's the way to come at it. That would be great.
because we are really new.
No,
with the exception of a few
and
people.
I know
Yeah.
when we did it with Jamie, I was new. It was, I think, within the first year, and I found it really helpful for that very reason. Yeah,
Okay, we'll do it.
Educate
I
us.
will.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, so we've been working on the accessory dwelling unit stuff. The commission worked, I think, two or three different meetings working on this language after they opted out. They opted out, and part of the opt-out was, we're gonna opt out, and we'll review the language to see if we need to make any additional changes. So I spent a couple meetings doing that, and these are the changes that are in front of you tonight. It is, I think, a fairly simple approach to what they're doing. Primarily, the biggest change from the existing language is how we devote specific area for the units. And there is a change. And so that change is that the area devoted to the accessory dwelling unit, and this is for both attached and detached units.
So can I ask a question? I have two different ones.
Do you have a clean version and a?
So this, this was just, but it's two different lengths, so I.
You should have a strike-through version and a clean version. The strike-through is going to be a little bit longer because there's formatting it.
Actually, my strike is shorter, so I don't know if I did something. So,
I think you're missing the second page.
oh,
That's why. You've only got 2 pages here.
okay, so this is
I think I
the,
only have 2 as well, George.
yeah, I printed what was, that was weird, okay.
All right, what about, the strike-through's only got 2 pages?
1.5.
Yeah, there's like
Yeah.
3
Oh, that's a
sentences,
mistake.
3 lines on page 3.
That's
Oh no, and then there's 4.
us. Is that what's on the Dropbox?
Yeah.
That was what was on the Dropbox, yeah.
Oh, boy.
I don't know, I'm looking at the Dropbox
You
on
have
here, and it has 7 pages total.
Of the marked up one?
7 pages total, so it's like markup, so it's application,
Yeah.
letter to from George.
I can't even get on my Dropbox.
Markup. Markup is 1 page with another line on 3.
We're missing,
Move to table the subject.
Second,
I'm gonna run and make copies for you in about
No,
a second.
But is this
and then
the,
the clean
there's the
version.
final.
so this is what we really are concerned
Yeah,
about? Okay, so,
I mean, I think the strike-through helps, that's for sure.
oh, okay,
But
well,
like, okay, and so they're making it larger ADUs.
That's correct.
So, okay, read the lines, read the strike through.
That's what
making it
they,
larger.
so, yes,
Boom.
I was gonna say, the simple version is that it's larger with essentially a minimum allowable for smaller units.
Yep.
so it's 600 or 30%,
Whichever is greater.
whichever is greater.
Which is an interesting
Okay.
twist on it that they came to.
Yeah.
They were concerned about smaller units not getting a livable unit in it.
Yeah,
But so that was that's it.
Okay.
The other 2 changes were they deleted outright the accessory dwelling unit shall have separate utilities.
Yep.
Which
Right, good.
doesn't matter. Their point was that we shouldn't care
Right.
whether they're separate or whether they're combined.
No, it was important at the time when
Yeah.
it was first discussed
Yes.
because we're trying to limit
Yes, that's right.
the presence of these ADUs.
That's right.
So this is going to make them bigger and.
Potentially allow more.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing that,
potentially make them bigger.
there was always the ability to have a detached ADU.
Yes,
Right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not, there's no suggestion that, we just carried that language to the detached, they're just separate. One is reviewed by site plan, the other is reviewed by the special exception process.
No, there was a big deal to make sure that you had a common door between them.
Right, so that's been removed as well.
I saw that.
Yeah. So they're trying to match some of the tenants under the state law
Okay.
by standing on its own,
Okay.
as opposed to just not opting out and taking the state law requirement.
Question I have, so it sounded like when I read this, if you're doing an attached unit, you have to go to the town to get site plan approval?
You have to go to the zoning commission. That is the way it is today, and so that is not a change in this draft.
Okay, so, but for a detached, you don't have to go to zoning?
You absolutely have to go to zoning in the heightened review process of the special exception process, which
Gotcha.
requires a public hearing.
Oh, so this is public hearing, okay, but the other one wouldn't require?
Detached public hearing, attached just site plan review on a regular agenda.
Okay.
Again,
Okay.
no change. That is not a change to your current ordinance. the current
Okay.
ordinance.
So if somebody wanted to put an addition on their house, they don't have to go through a site plan.
They do not.
So why would we have them do that for an ADU? What's the difference? I'm just throwing that out. I mean, just,
So I'll answer for the zoning commission process, and I think how we've previously done it is you're adding a second unit, and so they think that it gives them an opportunity to review the location and access and where the door is going to be and all those different kinds of things.
Change the type of unit, right?
I mean,
As opposed to
you know,
just doing an addition.
They want to see where, is it,
Yeah, I think from what I understand from people that have been pushing the ADUs, they don't agree with the site plan review. So I was just trying to understand, if they did
I
an
think that-
addition on the house, which could be even bigger, they don't have to go through zoning. So
No,
why?
that's really a zoning permit staff review.
Right.
That's correct.
So why wouldn't why wouldn't that just be the same for an attached accessory dwelling unit? Why wouldn't they go through the same process? Or could
The
they?
zoning commission chose to
Okay,
require
right, okay.
the additional review because it was a second unit, potentially a rental unit
Oh,
on
okay,
the property.
okay.
They did not take out the owner occupied requirement. So an owner must occupy either the accessory unit or the primary unit.
They have to?
Must,
Okay,
shall.
must. Okay.
Yes. Staff's conclusion, if you're interested in staff's conclusion, I mean, your POCD's got two sections where it talks about support for accessory dwelling units.
Yeah.
And our conclusion is that this change is consistent with your POCD.
Do you remember where that was? I'm trying to-
I do. Page 89.
Okay, because I know.
And really, page 90 is where it's specific. Page 89 just gives the major goal, maintain and enhance safe, healthy, healthful, aesthetic, and distinctive living in Simsbury while providing a range of housing choices for people of all ages. Obviously, accessory dwelling units do provide for, adds to that range. And then on page 90,
I thought we had some.
I think under diversity, item number 3, 10.2A3.
Oh, accessory apartments,
Says,
yeah.
Simsbury will provide for appropriately scaled accessory apartments within or attached to a single-family dwelling unit so long as one living unit remains owner occupied. So you got support in your POCD for these kinds of units.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to return a positive referral to the zoning commission application number 22-18, finding the application consistent with the 2017 Simsbury Plan of Conservation and Development.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, so all those in favor of the positive referral to the zoning commission on the ADUs? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so it passes unanimously. Thank you, George. Are they going to have a public hearing on this?
Public hearing, I apologize, I should have said that in my presentation. Public hearing will be at a special meeting on July 25th. It's just a standalone meeting they felt better to have.
All right.
So that's
So people can go and,
Monday night.
at that
So
point.
that'll be
and they
Monday
can
night,
talk.
it'll be in person on July 25th at 7 PM.
All right. Perfect. Any correspondence, George?
I do not have any correspondence for you.
All right.
Question, no, I'll put it under correspondence. Membership, I'll call it membership to the Capital Region Council of Governments Regional Planning Commission. Did you receive a request from CROG to identify an individual to represent Simsbury?
Yeah, we talked about, we could.
I sent it in.
I thought
Okay.
we sent it in because I know I had emailed you
I
and said that.
definitely sent it in.
Okay, fine. I don't have anything contrary to that.
Did you get contact? You didn't get contacted, is what you're telling
No,
me.
I did. I
Oh.
did, but I didn't know if it was carryover from my previous.
Did it happen like 4 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that's
then
right
that
when I
was
sent it in.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so
good.
yeah.
No, it worked.
Yeah, okay.
I went to the meeting last week.
Okay.
Not very well attended. And I think the RPC, the Regional Planning Commission, is having some attendance problems themselves.
Oh.
Generally, they have someone come in and give a topic, a topic of the day. They didn't have anyone there. The director, I don't think she was there. I think they've had a change of leadership again, or maybe someone new's coming in. So one of the supporting people tried to run the meeting, and it was a little shaky. And there were several new people from other towns. That was good to see, some new faces, Suffield's going through something with the cannabis regulations. Can't remember exactly what it was. Other people, Newington always, they have a comment about the busway, and does the train go through, the CT rail go through Newington? I can't remember.
So.
But anyway, there's development zones like a quarter mile or half mile from the transportation corridors, so they're struggling with that. That was about it that I can remember.
You meet monthly? Is that a
It's
monthly?
every 3 months.
Ooh, okay. It's hard to keep momentum going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, when we did it in person, it was a lot better. Even though people complained about driving to West Hartford, from Canton.
Right.
And, but they showed up every time. Actually, there was more people from Rockville going to West Hartford. They were the ones, or, Vernon.
Yeah.
But, no, they used to be very well attended.
No, that's too bad.
But I'm on it.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, we had done,
Yeah. Thought I did it.
I know, I was just.
I was like, no, I sent it.
And I sent
I think I
it to-
told you I sent it. Now that I think
You may
about it,
have.
I think I did, yeah.
They have.
And I know Holly has touched base with the sustainability people, so she couldn't make that first meeting, so
Okay.
we should be good. All right,
Move to adjourn.
I second that, so all those in favor?
Can we discuss it?
Oh, do you want to discuss it, Bill?
No.
All those opposed? The meeting is adjourned at 8:45 or 8:46.